Hello. So, what do you reckon about everything that's come crashing down on us? All the responsibility, command, this new power?
Sealer looks anxious. She's honing her sword, but her movement seems nervous. The girl doesn't even notice you at first, but when she does, she smiles cheerlessly and stops what she's doing. This is what I was born for.
I envy your confidence. In a good way. It's great to believe that everything is going the way it should. I'm still frightened by what happened in the Grey Garrison. Were we really chosen? By Iomade herself? You know, back when I was a snot-nosed kid who just started down the path to becoming a paladin, I imagined once or twice that I was going to do something heroic. The lights would shine down on me, the trumpets would sing, I'd hear the voice of the goddess, or at least her herald, you know? I'd be informed that I had been chosen for a great cause. But that's the point where my imagination always failed me. Somehow, it really happened. Without all the trumpets or the herald or even anyone explaining what I had to do. Though it's clear as day, my place is here, in this demon-ridden wound. Quite a lovely war going on, in fact. Endless, I hear. I'm gonna need some time to wrap my head around this. Spare me an hour and I'll crawl into some dark corner and whine about my hard lot. What can I tell you? I cry easily.
Why are there 150 gold coins just in some randomly placed bag under a tree? Seems... Oh, and wine. Is this a lovebird nest? I mean, why do they need a knife and armor potion? That's mine now. Okay. What's that? Elaine of the Houndhearts. Oh. The knight is so absorbed in reading the letter that he takes no notice of you or anything around him. He smiles and seems like he's about to kiss the paper. Okay. What about Curl? What did Sealer call us? League of the Inspiring Cart? I wish we could set up an official name. Jenna Eldori, what's up? I wonder when I'll see a real battle. Everything so far has just been a warm-up. Trust me, you don't want a real battle.
Godspeed.
What about our theater group? Finally, a serious dramatic piece in our hands. Shovel horse shit, okay? Actor. Camellia, what's up with you? Greetings. What do you think of the powers you received from me? Camellia shrugs nonchalantly. When people of noble descent grow accustomed to ample opportunity, the powers I received from you are useful, but I see no point in treating them with excessive piety. Your goddess bless you, and you're like, all right, nice. The end. Okay. That's a bit ungrateful. Okay, Hilor. Hilor nods approvingly. You've earned the title of commander. Kenabris still stands thanks to you, but you'll have to be doubly on your guard. What? Oh, again, I barely scraped the spacebar. This is really bothering me. Killing a high-ranking crusader would bring a demon far more prestige than killing a common soldier. Not long ago, I stymied a few of the Spinners of Nightmare's attempts on the lives of influential crusaders, so I know what I'm talking about. Which influential crusaders did you save from the Spinners of Nightmares? I'd been hunting the Spinner of Nightmares for over a year. My agents, by that time I'd created a proper network, reported to me that she'd returned to Neurosian. I immediately suspected that she was planning a great atrocity. By that time, I'd learned all too well that the spinner was master of illusions and charms. That's why I never left the house without this. Healer takes a monocle from his pocket and puts it on carefully. This is the Eye of Truth. It allows me to see through illusions. My friend got it from the priests of Nethys. However, neither this monocle nor my network of agents were adequate to prevent the attacks, and we were nearly too late. The Spinner of Nightmares decided to strike at the Cruciform Cathedral. They had gathered to celebrate the victory of the First Crusade. It was a great holiday. There was a lavish ceremony at this cathedral. An influential priest, Anthoclitus, was in charge of the festivities. They were intending to crown him with a tiara, a symbol of his high status, but the sacred tiara had been replaced. The spinner had obtained an Icotilis, a sentient and rather ominous cephalopod from the other end of the world. She'd raised it from an elver and trained it carefully, and she cast an illusion on it so that everyone would see it as a tiara. The moment its shell was placed on Anthoclitus' head, the cephalopod would release its tentacles and penetrate the priest's skull. Its poison would seep into his brain, and it would seize control over Anthoclitus' dead body. Fortunately, we were able to stop this madness in time. I spotted the Spinner of Nightmares in the crowd, chased her down, and we ended up crossing swords on the roof of the cathedral. I nearly defeated her, but she fled upon a giant stallion, which was able to run across the air as if it were on the ground. Oh dear, nightmare steeds now that can fly, that's problematic. I was so close to catching her. She'd suffered a setback, but I let her escape. Healer's bitter and angry smile shows he hasn't made peace with his failure. Tell me about your confrontation with the Spinner of Nightmares. It's a long story. Telling you everything would take 2 days. Which part do you want to know? Yeah. Again, how did it all begin? We've heard that one. We'll talk about this later. Okay, so we're done here. Enemies cunning and treacherous. I know. Recruits? Too many recruits. What about friends? Crusaders? Lan, what about you? What brings you here? I'd like to know more about you. Let me guess. Your first question is, can you wear a hat with your one horn? Am I right? You speak common much better than the rest of your tribe. Funnily enough. Common is not the common underground. But your observation is correct. I used to live on the surface with my parents for a while and had a chance to learn a couple things. The language and the fact that every peasant who sees my scaly muck screams demon and runs away. I don't know if you're interested, but my mom wasn't from an underground tribe. She was a smuggler, the kind that used the dungeons of Cannopolis to secretly move and store goods. One time, 2 gangs couldn't agree on how to share a prime cut, got into a fight, and the winners threw the losers down a hole, dead and living alike. My dad went to check if the corpses had anything useful on them and found a girl from the surface, barely clinging to life. An incredible feeling sparked between them, or maybe the girl just liked men with scales and a cat nose. That might be it. Anyway, one way or another, he got her back on her feet, and he later even left his home caves. She left her smuggling behind, and they began an honest life together. That's the delightful story of how Old Lan came into this world. For the next chapter, however, my family and I never stayed in one place for long. We lived sometimes on the surface, sometimes underground. We couldn't find a place to call home. Living in the caves with Hart or my mom, and my dad's appearance raised too many questions in Mendev. They're at war against the demons after all. In the end, my parents decided to stop making each other miserable and separated. My father and I returned to our tribe. I think the peasant screaming demon had something to do with it. Or maybe Dad just couldn't stand life without rat tail soup. I wouldn't rule out the possibility. Did you come with me so you could see the surface again? No, that wasn't it. I just don't have much patience for certain types of creatures. Demons, I mean. If they want to destroy Kinables, I'll be on the side of the people they're attacking. Lan looks away. Lan, you're my companion, and companions should trust each other. I'm counting on you to give me an honest answer. Not excuses. Lan looks ashamed. I guess you're right. I shouldn't have been so evasive. It's just that some things are hard to talk about. My family, for example. My birth, hell take me, turned out to be a great misfortune for my parents, all because I'm relatively healthy. I'm the best thing that can come from marriage between a cave-dwelling mongrel and anyone from the surface. A healthy child with the right number of hands and feet, no apparent defects, no missing organs or other problems. They saw hope in me, so risked having more children. They thought it would somehow be alright. Growl edges into Lan's voice. I could have had 4 brothers. The first was born 2 years after me, and died 3 years later. He didn't have a nose. Nothing even remotely resembling one. He couldn't only breathe through his mouth. Mom and Dad were afraid to take their eyes off him, for fear he'd choke and suffocate on something. But in the end, it was his weak heart that killed him. Then there was another pregnancy and birth. I pretended I was sleeping, but I snuck out of my bedroom and listened under the door. All those hours it was very strange, but I never heard the newborn screaming. Mom moaning, yes, the priest praying, and then I dared to open the door a little and looked inside. The priest stood there, very pale. One of them was holding something, a small object that fit in his palm. He asked, "Do you know what this is?" And the other said, "I think it's a head." Lan stops. Enough. You don't have to keep going if it hurts you. Hell no, I started to tell you and I'll make it to the end. You want to know why I followed you to the surface? Well, here's the reason. Lan pauses, exhales, and continues in a steadier voice. It turned out that this time Mom was expecting triplets. The first of the babies was born in pieces, and the 2 others didn't live long enough to draw their first breath. About 3 weeks later, my father took me to the caves. He didn't want to leave. I could see it in his face. But I think my mom and he decided it together. The curse my people have carried since the first crusade has stood between them. Not to mention the 4 dead babies, and old age was rapidly taking its toll on my father, and after we returned to the cave, he only lived another 4 years. So if you're asking me why I decided to go up with you to the surface and join the Crusaders, well, the answer is I've always wanted to. I was afraid to leave my tribe, but it always haunted me that I had to die in a world where 4 crusades could do nothing to stop the beasts from the abyss, and the number of victims kept growing. I want to change that, or at least try to. And if changing things is too much to ask, then at least get a little revenge. The ones who are behind the world wound owe me a great debt. The lives of 4 brothers, all my mother's tears, my father's broken heart. It's a lot. It's so much that killing a couple of demons won't do it for me. I want to do something real, and I'm ready to pay any price. Call it my personal crusade if you like. Lan gives you a slanted grin. I used to think that things would be better if I'd never been born, but now I think I was born for this, to settle a score. Why didn't you go up and join the Crusaders before, after your father died? I couldn't just abandon my tribe. I'm their best hunter. They'll have it much harder without me, but now that the demons have nearly destroyed Kinabalis and the cave was almost collapsed on our heads, sitting and waiting it out just wasn't an option anymore. Anyway, I'm more useful up here than I am down there. Plus, the chief let me go, which means my debt to the tribe has been paid. Would you like to find your mother? No. The word flies from Lan's mouth faster than an arrow. Then, after a pause, he continues. I don't want to meet her, not because I feel any resentment, it's just that she's a half-elf. She's barely got her first grey hair, and I'll be a ramshackle old man. She's buried enough children. There's no need to make her witness the death of another. I hope you understand. That's very noble of you. I am very sorry, truly. Lan smiles, this time sadly. Well, then I'm very lucky. I met someone who not only helped me choose the right path, but is happy to listen to my whining. You're not whining, friend. You're just retelling the story of your life. Your parents' love didn't survive hardship, but that doesn't mean the same thing will happen to you. What if you find true love? Someone who won't leave you no matter what? And break my beloved's heart when I die in her arms 5 years later? That's a fine thing to do to the person you love. Then again, there's a chance I'll inspire some tragic bard to write a tearful ballad. Why does he think that he's going to die in 5 years? I don't really understand that. Thanks for sharing, Lan. Mongols have short lifespans. Ah, okay. But you don't look like you're getting old or dying. How old are you? I'm as old as I look. No surprises there, but remember Sal? He's 10 years older than me. I remember him back when he was a fearless warrior, and day by day I watched him turn into an old man, him and my father. It happens very quickly. First you miss a shot, because you don't see the target as clearly as you used to. You think it's because your eyes are tired. You tell yourself it will become better tomorrow. Then you notice you're having trouble breathing, that climbing is harder than before. Lan clenches and unclenches his human fist. Your fingers stop bending. You have to tie your sword to your hand. You can't even put on your greaves without help. When you're washing your face in a stream, sometimes you catch sight of a grey-haired, wrinkled old man you don't recognize. And this goes on until one day you come across a cave beast and you realize you can't outrun it. Lan takes a breath. My dad kept diaries, marking all the signs, and I saw it too. Last year, I had to help him get out of bed, help him dress, remind him to eat. Sometimes he forgot my name. I told him that we should have stayed on the surface, and he joked that dodging a goddess was behavior unworthy of a crusader. He meant Pharasma. Every morning I wake up and check how I feel, but there are no signs yet. Even so, I don't have much time. I need to do something useful before I forget why I came here. I would like to talk to you about Wendur. Are you sure? Alright. Tell me about your connection to Wendur. My connection to Wendur? I mean, where do I start? Lanterns, by the way, that's the girl from the beginning. With a scary spider legs growing out of her back. The one that betrayed us. The one that didn't want us to go into the maze, if you forgot. Lanterns, the unexpressive reptile half of his face to you. We grew up together, trained together. She was the chief's daughter. She was groomed to be the best all her life, and then I come along. We were rivals, but we dragged each other out of tight spots too. I've always been drawn to grand heroic gestures, sometimes idiotic ones, whereas Wendu liked to roam unexplored passages, finding new caves and making maps. She wanted to be a great huntress, the one who'd make it through the shield maze, but instead she... Lan shakes his head. It'd be better if she died. The death of a friend is painful, but watching a friend become a shadow of their former self, a murderer, it's unbearable. She doesn't think she's a shadow of her former self. Of course, she thinks she did everything right, but the second she starts to doubt herself, she'll have to face the truth, to admit that she's just a cannibal that demons use as they wish. Lan's frown looks almost like a wince. She wants to get stronger and stronger, but for what? I'll never understand what drives her. Were you just friends, or were you more than that? Wow, you really don't pull punches, huh? Lan exhales loudly. There was a time when I asked myself the same question. Wendu knew me better than anyone. She understood me better than anyone. She was my first woman. So yes, they had sex. But we never loved each other. Maybe I could have grown to love her, but it always seemed like she never understood what love was. Maybe She wasn't capable of those kind of feelings. Well, thank you for sharing that. If you ever want to reopen any more of my old wounds, you know where to find me. So, can you wear a hat with your one horn? Sure I can, but certain designs don't suit me too well. Lan speaks in a deadly serious voice. I found everything I wanted to know, thank you. Please tell me more about your people. Of course, what would you like to know? What's it like living in your caves? Oh, Lan gives you a broad smile. The smile is strange, as if it falters where his human features meet his animal ones. Imagine that in the entire world, there's only a few hundred like you. There's not an inch of fertile ground anywhere, nowhere to grow grain for bread, or cotton, or linen for cloth. Your neighbors are beasts who want to eat you, or parasites who want to infect you with their larvae, and then eat you. And it's not that bad, because you can try to eat most of the things that are trying to eat you, sometimes at risk of getting poisoned, sometimes with almost no risk at all. In the worst years, there's not a single living thing anywhere to be found, predator or prey. That's when you eat mushroom soup. I'd say 3 times a day, but that was barely enough for once every 3 days. But life underground has its upsides, pun intended. There's no risk of losing the roof over your head. There's no bad weather, not counting the earthquakes, of course. Are you really the descendants of the first Crusaders? More like demon spawn, aren't we? Sad, but true. Without the demons, there would be no mongrels. It's the magic of the world wound that affected our ancestors, and made their children the way that we are. Like most in our tribe, Chief Saul fancies himself a descendant of the underground Crusaders. The ones our heroic ancestors left to guard the caves. Guard them because of what? I don't know if it's true or not. That angel came to our caves for a reason. Maybe he remembered us? Those were evil and dangerous times after the first crusade. Hundreds of crusaders began having children, and the babies were born with fangs and horns and warts that covered half their face. People didn't like the new look. The Inquisitors sure didn't, so our ancestors fled persecution and made a home for themselves down there, under the ground. They probably intended to find a cure for their children and hoped to return in time, but it never happened. Instead, the world wound terrible legacy was passed down from generation to generation. I mean, as plans go how to destroy your enemy, poisoning your enemies to have monstrous children, to break their morale, that's a genius plan. If being absolute evil is your plan, that is. Mongrel parents can only guess what their child will look like. Each of us is born with a new mutation. Many mutations are fatal. Lan stops, then goes on quietly. Down in the caves, we usually don't congratulate the family for the birth of a child until they turn at least 3. Most don't even get a name before that. There's no point. Oh, that's a very disturbing topic. There are places on Earth when you have a premature child that is unlikely to live, then sometimes doctors will advise you to not give the baby a name until it has reached a certain point. Because supposedly it will make you say goodbye easier. The moment you give it a name, it has become a person and in your mind, and it will be very, very hard to deal with the death of that beautiful little baby. That's a very difficult topic. It hasn't been that long since the first crusade. Why do you know so little about your ancestors? Our lives are much shorter than most uplanders. Up here, only a few generations passed, and many still live who remember old Secoris as it stood untouched by the demons. Queen Galfrey, for example, but where we live, mongrels start getting old much earlier than humans, much faster and with more devastating consequences. Few live past 40, and Fewer still live long enough to die of old age. Hunger, disease, and monsters from the deep are more effective killers than time. So, for us, the story of the First Crusade is a legend that happened generations ago. There are no living witnesses. We have a tale of the wise and great ancestors who left us to stand guard in the catacombs, but in reality I suspect they were desperate wretches who couldn't figure out how to dispel the demonic plague and who were abandoned by their own kin. Do you have a way to tell day and night? You can't see the sun in your caves. Ah, every mongrel settlement has a big gong, which we treat like a relic. The gong keeper hits it twice a day to mark the beginning and end, but this custom doesn't keep time very precisely. Every mongrel child has snuck up to the gong to strike it at the wrong time at least once, just out of pure mischief. Nothing could keep me away from it, not even the fact that I only even have one ear, which means it would take double the punishment once I was caught. So, sometimes the wrong strikes get mixed in with the right ones, and the tribe can find itself jumping up to greet the morning in the middle of the night. Okay. Do mongrel tribes fight each other? Ah, there were some skirmishes, and I've been forced to kill my kinfolk before too. Lan speaks in a steady voice. Fights most often break out over food. We have laws in the caves, written and unwritten rules that we follow. We respect one another's right to live, but hunger, it can push a person over the edge. I've never, you can count on that, stolen someone else's kill. But I can understand those of my kin who tried. To hear your kids begging for food, not be able to feed them, is terrifying. You know, I'm thinking that if I lived in such a situation, pure darkness, monsters around me, and I couldn't feed my children, would I be willing to steal from people? I mean, of course I would try to hunt on my own, and then, if that doesn't work, try to get other people to hunt with me. But if even that doesn't work, I mean, I'd probably ask the person that managed to kill to share, or try to pay him somehow. But if that doesn't work, if you have a child begging for food, starving, and you can't feed it no matter what, very difficult. Would probably be a reason for me to turn criminal to a certain degree, if there's no other way. But usually there always is a way, so that's not necessary. You're the only member of the Nithum tribe to call your people mongrels. Why is that? Because of all of Galarian calls us that, huh? I don't see the point for all this hemming and hawing over what we called. Anyone who finds it offensive or takes issue with it can lead the charge against the name. No one's stopping them, but personally I'm not going to pick a fight over something as unimportant as a name. Well, thank you very much. I found out a lot of what I wanted to know. It's nice to know my ramblings seem useful to someone. Or somebody. What do you think of life on the surface? Must be very different from life underground. Of course, as far as living conditions, the surface is definitely a better place to be. It's easier to get good food and water, not to mention build a house and even grow a few things. In older, well-established settlements, you don't have to deal with anything scarier than rats or maybe foxes stealing chickens. As for the kind of lives you have, I heard a story about demon worshippers abducting a whole family and sacrificing them one by one while the others watched, but there were some brave Crusaders knights nearby and they killed the villains and saved everyone. And I heard another story. A young blacksmith lost his arm in a fire, couldn't work to feed his wife and baby. They tried their best and lived from hand to mouth, but they were still destitute. In the end, the desperate blacksmith robbed the traveler one night on the road. But there were some brave Crusader knights nearby, and they caught the robber and threw him in prison. Not long after, his wife smothered their baby and hanged herself. Jesus, that's a dark story. Up here, the same person can proudly say he's protecting the innocent from demons, and then look the other way while the same innocent starves just because they were born into a poor family. Queen Golfrey prolongs her life with sun orchid elixirs that cost enough to feed an entire city. Back in our caves, everyone is equally poor, and if one person starves, the whole tribe starves. We don't abandon our own in times of trouble. Well, that's the power of a tribe. The laws of the surface are made so that some get everything, and others get nothing. I might just be a naive fool from the caves, but I don't understand how it's possible to have so much more and share so much less. Anyway, look who I'm talking to. You must know life on the surface much better than I do. Well, I'd never leave a needy person in trouble. Been giving more than most, which means I'm now able to help others. A fitting reply. Don't take my words as a reproach. I like grumbling as much as cracking jokes. Alan is obviously trying to muster a friendly smile, but it's an expression his face doesn't accommodate very naturally. What do you think of what happened in the Grey Garrison? Did you feel a change in yourself? Ah, it's hard not to notice when the demons start running away from you like a flock of frightened bats. Powers granted by Eomide to defeat demons. Lan raises his hand above his head and pensively scratches behind his single horn. Since I was a kid, I've taken whatever I've been given and used it as best I can. Anything goes where you're trying to survive. It doesn't matter where your blessings come from. We can think about that when we are old, if we live long, but you know, this time, even I'm not so sure. A divine power that just appears out of nowhere. Sooner or later, we'll have to pay for it. I'd like to know what the price will be. You said you were prepared to risk your life to do something meaningful. What exactly does that mean? To invent a new salad and have it named after me, Lan remarked grimly. Any size. Truth be told, I don't know. It would be much easier if all I really wanted was to kill demons, then a few more demons, then more demons after that. Good, honest rage, and no needless brooding. I think I can... You know, I think I actually envy the warriors who can live like that. But I can't. If life's taught me anything, it's that there are no easy choices. Dying a glorious death isn't enough. Some heroes of the Crusades did that and also saved entire settlements, erected the ward stones. Their actions kept the lands of Mendev safe for decades. That's what I want. For my dumb, short life to have meant something. To find meaning in life. You know, when a god is blessing you and demons are running away, that's usually a sign that you're on the right path to achieve meaning. Oh, you think I have an exaggerated opinion of myself? Some scaly freak crawls out of the caves and wants to take control of the war stones and flaunt Diomedes' banner. Any fool can charge at the front lines of the demonic armies and die there, but what good will that do? I want something meaningful, you know, even if I have to pay the highest price. Especially I have to pay it. There are plenty of worthier people who need to survive this war and tell everyone else what nutcases we were. Alrighty. Thank you for your answers. So long. Well, that's not even a goodbye. Okay. So we're almost done with half the camp. And then we can start our real playthrough. So, until next time, when we will meet... Recruit, everywhere recruit. Anyone we can talk to? Who am I going to talk to next episode? Crusaders, recruits, blah... Oh! More loot. Randomly placed on the ground. Why would someone place glass there and alcohol? Nenio. Okay, so next episode we're going to dive into Nenio's story.